Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Okay, since I made the last video for the My Story playlist, and keep in mind I have other playlists you should look at. One is the Witness playlist, and they edited all my old videos and pictures again, trying to make it so I look Jewish, what have you. Try to make it so I look like a crypto Jew, a weirdo, someone who's autistic with a developmental disorder, crazy, gay, gender neutral, cartoon-like, what have you. The difference between my shape and the Jewish shape, look at the IDF, for example. Look at Hamas. They're shaped more like a Jewish person than they are shaped like me, because they have genetic commonalities for various reasons. The various breeding campaigns that the global Jewish community has undertaken is part of why the historical connections between Semites and what have you. Now, my body shape is more similar to a sort of Michael Jordan mixed with Bruce Lee or something. But again, I'm 6'4". It's wider shoulders, right? One of the things that sticks out to me is the wider shoulders. The physique is much more impressive than a Jewish physique. No offense to anybody, just telling the facts. They made it so I have to clarify this, etc. And so they try to make it so I seem more like them, and it's hard to say why that is. People who work for them have told me that it's just because they're idiots, and it's maybe something they're saying to be diplomatic or something. I don't think that they actually have a good reason for what they're doing. There's whites, Jews, and gays doing this. Interesting. Incidentally, I was watching this video on YouTube about Trump signing executive orders, and there's this Jewish person with his wife, or whoever that lady is, with him, and there's Trump, and they all have the kind of LGBT circus theme about them. And right there, it's the white Jew and LGBT community doing it. In terms of not the community, the white Jewish and LGBT governing class doing it. And they break down into factions and compartments, and they play a game, but they all uphold the racket of white Jewish and LGBT supremacy. Again, I might have to skip from point to point here in this video. I want to make this quick. I'm on the side of the road and make it harder for me to upload my videos. Something occurred in Santa Cruz where I went on a bunch of trips after renting several different cars. I rented 3 different cars. I've committed to going to Oakland and renting a 4th car. Okay, at separate times, of course, because Too Short's brother was killed in a way that was pointing to me as the pattern, as was the pattern when I made a video. This is very important in this story. I made a video on West Cliff in Santa Cruz during a time I expected to die any day. So I was living my life knowing that death is coming soon. It's a long story why that is, and I can't get too much into detail, but it has to do with them poisoning me and fuming me, etc. And so I'm recording as I make my speech out loud to protect me legally, to show any police officers who stop me that I'm not disturbing anybody if it ever comes up, right? That I'm just making my video, I'm talking sense, what have you. And that I'm not, breaking the law. I'm not some kind of, mentally ill person, because people might falsely accuse me of that. So as I'm recording it, I'm recording the pier, or the wharf rather. And later on, 2-3 weeks later, after I made that video about Psalms, recording the wharf in Santa Cruz on Westcliff, when I was at Westcliff, that the tip of that pier was destroyed, okay, by large waves. Now, some of you who've been watching my videos know that's not a coincidence. But it becomes clear cut that it's not a coincidence that I was reading Psalms, and the Psalms was talking about waves and water, and God's vengeance on the wicked using waves and water and flood. You see what I'm saying? I'm making it harder for me to articulate myself. And I'm being fumed while I'm saying this, fumed inside and from the outside. Another thing that's been happening is that they've made it so I sound more gay than ever at times, and it's caused a lot of tension to occur, a lot of brain zapping, a lot of back and forth. Mostly me yelling at them and them kind of feeling bad and what have you. But then they always try to take the upper hand, and they've never been able to do it. So one good way to explain what's going on is they're playing it as if it's like a spiritual struggle, which they know they can't win, and it's very strange, right? So, for example, well, let me first finish off the trips. Okay, so there was that. Then this female had said in one of the last trips, it might have been the second to last trip or the last trip. I can't remember if it was the last trip. I think it was the last trip, the third trip. Okay, because there's going to be a fourth one, this month. So in the third one, she said that she has to jet, and of course there was two airplane crashes, and one was referred to as a jet, and in the annotations they must have made a mistake and they put Jetson. And I always use the Jetsons as an example of why it's not worthwhile to impress people in the future, right? Because they have a certain way about them in that cartoon. They're a bunch of funny geeks, and who would sabotage the most righteous person ever, trying to impress Jetsons and people who are breeding Jetsons and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of reasons I'm right? Simpsons, Sons, and Jetsons, and what have you. Power Rangers and kind of fairy-like people. And a long time ago, they told me that the elite's plan was to make people like fairies. They said, you probably aren't going to believe me. Some gay gentleman had said that. And he said they're going to make people fairy-like in the future. And of course, at the time, I didn't exactly believe him, right? Because it seems far-fetched. But these days, it's clear that something like that is occurring. And again, I deal in the evidence and logic. I'm a rational person. Okay, I live rational thought and logic and the most logical assumption and so on and so forth. Except for in matters of God, I'm 100% certain, beyond the most logical assumption that God exists, that God exists. So what's also happened is, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, that my parents are being evicted from their house. Okay. And I've been hesitating to say this because it is personal. Some people might see it as weakness. Okay, I spent a lot of money helping them pay bills over the last couple of years while they're basically following orders to waste money from the government, while kind of being in a state that is the type of state that you'd want to be there for them. And of course, they have that card of, oh, we took care of you and we raised you and all this stuff. So I decided to stick around instead of leaving, to go from hotel to hotel. I decided to spend that money at home and rent cars and stuff like that, and reach out into the area, seeing how I'm in California anyway. And there's no point in, if I go too north, there's not much there, right? There's Sacramento, okay, San Francisco. These places don't really bear fruit. Berkeley, Oakland, they don't bear fruit. In fact, I've been to Oakland several times and nothing good came from it. Okay. And if I go south, there's nothing forever and ever and ever. There's just a bunch of small towns going south. Okay. Salinas, Hollister, Gilroy, okay, what have you. And then there's going towards Santa Cruz. There's nothing there as well. But if I went directly south on 101 and kept going, it takes you all the way to LA like 6 to 8 hours later, depending on how fast you drive, something to that effect. And the traffic, what have you. But there's nothing there, right? You go on forever and ever, small town, Santa Barbara, small town, there's like nothing there. And just really think about it, there's nothing there in the whole state altogether. I mean, and anywhere else in America or anywhere else on the planet, for example, right? So San Francisco, Los Angeles, Sacramento, I mean, you don't expect to go there and win people over. And you don't expect to go to a small town and win people over. So I decided to stay put and just keep spending money and, to clash with the governing class, basically to the same degree I've been clashing, but as it's been heating up, it kind of naturally escalated the clash. And so let me kind of give you an example here. They'll say some insults that mean nothing, right? They'll say, wow, that was a lot of money that you spent. Well, that's too bad. Well, what about this? What about this? And I'd say, they're fair weather women anyway. Okay, money's just money. Okay, when I look back at that, I sacrificed that for God and to do what's right, like everything, like I have with my time and my decisions in my life. But they'll look back at betraying God every step of the way, and they'll feel real small. They'll feel destroyed. They'll concede my point, what have you. And so it is with the spirit. So as they go through the motions of trying to wage spiritual war against God by waiting till I'm in certain spiritual states to kind of attack me with psychology and technology, to do disgusting things and evil things and to zap my brain and act like they're getting at the Spirit of God. Okay, at first, before they damage my brain too much, I would yell at them in a very serious way. I'd yell at the top of my lungs. Sometimes the neighbors would respond with loud noises, like banging the hammer on something, and they'd feel me first to make me vulnerable to loud noises. And so that would compound the situation. And in the most illegal way I can think of, it would provoke me while they're hoping that I'll be violent. But I'm the most disciplined person. If had I been the average person, then there would have been violence as a result. But since I'm the most disciplined person and my philosophy is superior to anything mental health is talking about, the churches or other religions or philosophies, I was able to easily contain myself and just limit it to yelling at them and talking about what's going to happen to the souls of them and their offspring and what have you. And I'm sure we can all agree that's fair. So I also emphasize that all victories are in principle. I went on the internet and on various channels, I believe, over the years, various comment sections I've touched on this to say, there is, and I'm going to go to more comment sections for good measure, but they suppress a lot of them anyway, but just to make sure that is on point here and the story is consistent with the truth. Because I know I've been doing a little bit of that, but I can't remember how much. So I said, okay, if you have a counter argument, I command you in the name of God to say it. If you think that they're actually winning, make your case. Okay? And no one has anything. They don't know what to say because all victories are in principle. Did Christ on the cross lose? No. Did John the Baptist lose? No. Did Stephen the Martyr lose? No. Can a country with 380,000 Christian churches, okay, and 20,000 denominations that still is Judeo-Christian culture, who voted for Trump under the false pretense of so-called Christianity, can they turn around and say, hey, those guys mean nothing? Those guys are characters in the most understood, most talked about story on the planet, and you have no viable counter-argument for the fact that they won. Okay, and I'm the top martial artist ever. I go beyond Christ as a character in the story, certainly, and obviously beyond the depictions of your Christ, I am the true Christ, the top martial artist ever, not some gay, white-looking guy with long hair, And for the same reason the Black Panther goes beyond a hippie or something, the top martial artist ever possible as Christ in reality goes beyond a hippie-looking Christ in a fantasy fairy LGBT white Jew and neo-colonial narrative. So as they try to do things, right, and outmaneuver, I easily outmaneuver them, slap them. I described it earlier, just maybe 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago. I described it as outmaneuvering them, slapping them across the face, and then, they fall to the ground and then putting a spear through their heart. And that it's going on every time that clash occurs, and it overall, over time, degrades and devalues and tramples their spirit more and more. Now, I don't know about you, okay? I don't know about you, but if I was a proud person, a tribalist, an ethnocentric, or a racist, I wouldn't want the top martial arts ever possible, okay, waging spiritual war against my spirit. And saying that he's right, that spirit is being trampled, okay? Their spirit, not mine, keep in mind. And that they have no viable counter-argument while they present no viable counter-argument. If that's not a spiritual trampling, what the fuck is? You see what I'm saying? Also, a key part of the story is I always go on and say, hey, was that too harsh after I make a video? Almost always I say, was that too harsh if I make a video that seems harsh? I establish various forms of communication with them. One is a more covert and subtle. One is with trolls in the comments, and they have various modes of communicating with me. Okay, this is not something that is in some crazy person's head. This is the most sane person that ever lives and ever well lives reality, and I'm communicating with them. The little cognitive glitches don't interfere with my sanity. Okay. And we know this for many reasons. One, which overkills, unnecessary overkill, is that if we had a sparring match right now and they let me recover, I'd still win. I might very well permanently injure myself in the process, but it's safe to say that I would easily win. Because I'm more in reality, right? Mind, body, soul, and spirit. I'm more in harmony with nature, more consistent with the principles of God and the precepts of reality. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure. I was hoping to make this a short video. It's a lot longer than I wanted to, man. That sucks, but there's a lot to go. A significant amount of stuff has happened. There's things that the government is investing in, okay, that prove my point about technology. I mean, I've been vindicated a zillion times over, like every day, but, so to speak. But we see with this massive investment in artificial intelligence and how the investments keep going and keep going, it overkills my argument about tech breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, right? The sexual control we see these days is unbelievably extreme. The way people are trying to help the government play it off overkills my point. Okay? They're trying to help them play it off. And what more evidence do you need? I mean, there's so many things that have happened, though, but a lot of them are small things. The major things that are happened and that's happening is the end is coming very soon in the absence of some kind of intervention that comes with, people. First of all, they got to meet my requirements, okay? Without that, it doesn't matter what they do. If people rally to me and they still don't meet my requirements, and I made a video about that it's over. Now, requirements have to do with my ability to serve God. It's not about getting money or women or this, and this. It's about, well, what do I need, to be healthy? What do I need to be mentally healthy? So I need a suitable helper. I need a certain amount of money, but I'm not going to ask anybody for money because I made a distinct point to not ask any for money. There's a difference between trying to raise money with GoFundMe or asking people for money or whatever, and me saying, hey, if the government doesn't compensate me for this much, and things like that, okay, there's a difference. So if that doesn't occur, okay, it's going to cause a series of events to occur. Okay, I'm not going to do a mass shooting, but it's going to contribute to the end specifically because the poisoning and the fumes will have killed me, okay, and the brain hacking, okay? I'm not suicidal. This is the bottom line. And I can't go more into detail with it than that because part of it, if you knew the exact situation, you do understand, part of it is, they're waging psychological warfare against me. They're trying to set me up in various ways, and I have to consider everything as I proceed. Okay, anyway, two things real fast. One is the requirements, right? It was that they have to stop gang stalking me because I've sustained a lot of damage. I'm 43. I'd be 44 this year, toward the end of the year. So therefore, the gang stalking must come to an end. Number two is I said that it'd have to be I'd have to receive at least $100,000 a year. And because they kept offending me and they kept persecuting me and they kept insulting my grandma who passed away and so on and so forth, that I raised it slowly but surely after each offense until we got to $550. But I'm open to lowering it to $100,000 a year, no less. Okay. Under the right circumstances. That's the only thing that's not, the non-negotiable part is $100,000 or more. So we'll say that to keep it simple. As they raise it up by their offenses, because I say in that case, I'm going to put you in a worse bargaining position, because at the end of the day, you and your offspring will forever have it on your souls that you're the offspring of the patriarchal lines that screamed me out. You're the people who didn't side with me, who didn't rally to me, whose destiny was to offend God instead of rally to God's Son. That's a heavy price to pay that you people are going to have to bear everything that occurs if you don't meet my requirements. And again, this is not some kind of terrorist set of demands, okay? I'm not going to harm anybody if they don't meet my requirements. The government is killing people all the time, and they're pointing to me. The plane crashes, the coronavirus, Coron Alpha Virus. I had a friend named Chris Corona when I was younger. I can connect it to so many things. Okay, there's some cases are so open and shut, more open and shut even than the Santa Cruz and the Wharf thing. There's some things that point directly to me, unbelievably so. The Uvalde shooting, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I live in the area in Morgan Hill where it's called Uvis. I grew up saying Uvis, but it means grapes, okay? And that connects to the Uvalde shooting. I'm going to go ahead and say that at this point, especially because we're moving out of here soon by the looks of it. But even though it doesn't matter, my house is held down to a large degree between the neighbors and everything considered, and the police that live in the area, that the government who, could kill me anytime they want, right? Obviously, I don't approve it. They're the ones who live around it. So there are a bunch of police officers, FBI agents, CIA assets, what have you, live around me. And they want things to go a certain way, so it's not very easy to kill me at my residence. It's easy to kill me when I'm out in public, relatively easy if you really put your mind to it. It's not very easy to kill me at my house, at my parents' house. So anyway, the Uvalde is a play on words for Uvas lead, okay? And if you look at the situation, and you look at this situation, and you look at how he resembles, and I made a video about that where the shooter resembles one of these, almost identical to this one YouTube video about David versus Goliath. And I say I'm the root and offspring of David, right? David is the king, right? The Christ, the Christos, the anointed. And the connections are sound, especially when you connect it with the other things. And there's a lot of things like that. Okay? So yeah, it was that women, I have to have a suitable helper. I have to be paid at least $100,000 a year. They have to stop gang stalking me. They can have lightweight surveillance on me. Okay, I don't approve of it, but they can do that. I'll allow for that. But they can't keep gang stalking. They can't keep poisoning me. They can't keep watching me because, I need a suitable helper and I need to have my privacy and what have you. And that's part of what I need to heal. Okay, and the negotiation, first and foremost, I'm going to serve God. No matter what. No matter what. Matter of fact, I'm going to make that the name of this video so that doesn't get lost in translation. That's point number one, is they can't expect me to be gay or anything like that. They can't expect me to pretend to be gay. They can't say, don't talk about this, this, and this. Okay? So those things aren't up for negotiation. The negotiation is centered around whether they're going to keep doing what they're doing, which is going to cause me to die one way or another, which is then going to increase the punishment for them and their offspring to the extreme. I'm one person. Eventually I'll die. If you don't believe that I'm God's son, then what? I'm just one person, right? If you do believe I'm God's son, you're doing these rituals because of that, okay? Then you're increasing your families and your societies and your nations, and your friends and your families, your neighbors, right? Punishment, right? One nation under God, right? Put God first, God, country, family, whatever the hell you people say, okay? So it's not in your best interest to target me, and it's not in your best interest for this to end on the trajectory that it's on. And again, this is not a physical threat. I can't get into the details because it has to do with the details of my plan for myself. There's no terrorist attack. This is not some threat of, a freaking, bomb freaking threat or something. It's not, a mass shooting. I'm not gonna do any of that dumb shit. Okay, now, well, how dumb it is depends on the situation, but that's not something that suits me. Okay, that's not something that meets my needs. Okay, this has to do with the domino effect of what they're doing causing my death. And again, I'm not suicidal and I can't get into the details of the differences here because it has to do with my plans. But they know what I'm talking about almost completely. And that's part of the story. Okay. Man, I didn't want to make this video this long. This pissed me off. I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow to upload it. They kind of fume me, trying to make it so I sound manic. Again, these things don't help. When you look at this thing, ask yourself, why are they trampling their own spirit more? Why are they trying to make it so I sound manic when everyone knows that people are gang stalked and people believe me about that? If I was that, I would just say that I was that. Because it's not the end of the world. For someone to be bipolar or to be depressed, you just fucking admit it. Who fucking cares? It doesn't change that. And I can say, hey, I don't know how that came about. But they induced that to play me out. And to try to undermine my story where I say I'm not mentally ill because I'm not and I never was. Am I, fumed and poisoned and thrown off? Yes. Have I suffered cognitive impairment? And for the most part, that's irreparable? Yes. But am I fucking mentally ill and delusional? No. It's impossible to be the top martial artist ever possible and to be fucking mentally ill and delusional. Okay. There's something else I wanted to say. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. It has to do with when they bring up stuff a certain way that's designed to kind of piss me off, and then I strike down their spirit more. I say things like, okay, everyone sinks lower, maximum punishment times 100 trillion, time to end times, because what you're doing is at the end of the story, at the end of my life, at the end of the timeline of Christ's life, at the end of the Bible. So there's an extra punishment that's multiplies the punishment. So it's times and times interference for having contempt of judgment and making it harder for me to deliver the punishment, to articulate it, okay? And so in this case, because of the fumins, it's times interference, times interference, times interference, times interference. I say things like that. Now, that is a verdict coming from God. Why? Because it's the logic, okay? If you insult God and I say, hey, that's going to cost you, and I'm going to estimate it. I'm going to say, well, it's going to cost you 10 times maximum punishment, okay? It's like a way of saying that you lost that exchange, buddy, and I'm reminding you. And it's also reminding you that I'm in charge, not you, Okay? If you were to rob a bank and you were to make fun of the judge and da-da-da-da-da, you know what I'm saying? It's far worse than that. And the judge says, you dumb fuck. Now you were caught. You knew you were going to get caught. And you knew I was going to judge you. And I'm going to add that extra punishment because you mocked X, Y, and Z. Now, in terms of divine judgment, and they're doing it on your behalf, mind you. In terms of the divine judgment, they're mocking God. And they're mocking God's Son. Why they pretend their inferior genes and their lesser forms of life are magically superior. You see what I'm saying? And that also inspires those insults while they're using their social media sites to make it so that I'm less inclined to spell it out like that. And I got to tiptoe through the tulips, which also is going to cost them. Speaking of that, everyone sing slower. Maximum punishment times 100 trillion times 100 trillion, said 999 trillion times n times interference. Thank you.